It was a sleepy town called Willowmere, nestled on the edge of a forest most people didn't talk about. They called it Moonlight Forest, but not because of its trees or flowers. It was because of the way it seemed to glow every full moon, as if it remembered something no one else did. 12-year-old Ellie Carter had always been curious. While other kids spent their evenings watching cartoons or scrolling through their phones, Ellie would sit by her bedroom window, notebook in hand, sketching stars and writing stories about faraway kingdoms. Her parents, Jane and Michael Carter, were loving but often too busy with work to understand the dreamy glint in their daughter's eyes. One night, just before the school year ended, Ellie sat watching the forest line behind her house. It was one of those unusually quiet nights. Even the crickets had gone silent. She noticed a moon. It wasn't full, not even close, but still, the trees shimmered faintly in the darkness. That had never happened before. She leaned out the window, listening. A wind stirred, soft, whispering. "Ellie?" She froze. Her heart skipped. Ellie Carter. No one was there. Not on the street, not in the yard. The voice was deep and gentle, like the pages of an old book being turned in a silent library. Ellie blinked. "Who's there?" No answer. Then she heard something rustling. Above! A snowy owl, large and elegant, glided down from the treetops. It landed on the garden fence. Its feathers shimmered with a glow like faint stardust. And then, impossibly, it spoke. "You are the one they've been waiting for." Ellie's mouth dropped open. She rubbed her eyes, thinking maybe she had dozed off. "You can talk." "Yes," the owl said, "but only when the moon listens." That sentence didn't make much sense, but it felt poetic. Magical, even. "My name is Thistle," the owl said, "and I've come to ask for your help." Ellie climbed out the window and tiptoed through the yard toward the fence. Her heart was hammering, but it didn't feel like a bad thing. It felt like the start of something important. "What kind of help?" she asked. "There's a kingdom," Thistle replied. "A kingdom hidden within dreams. Not your dreams or mine, but the dreams of the earth itself. It is called the Kingdom of Soft Dreams. And it's in trouble." Ellie blinked. "Is this a prank? Are my parents behind this?" The owl turned its head gracefully, like it was offended by the very idea. "I'm a guardian of Moonlight Forest. I protect the gateway between here and the dreaming kingdom. And tonight, something crossed through the veil that never should have." Ellie didn't know whether to laugh or run, but something in Thistle's eyes stopped her. It was sadness. Old, ancient sadness, like he had seen entire forests fall. "What crossed over?" she asked. Thistle looked toward the forest. A creature born of stolen sleep. A nightmare that forgot it was ever supposed to end. Its name is Hollowmire, and it has already taken part of the Dream Kingdom's light. Soon, it will try to steal yours. Now, Ellie really wanted to wake up. "You're saying dreams are real?" she asked. Thistle nodded. "As real as breath and bone. Dreams are what the world rests on when it forgets how to hope." She thought about the stories she wrote in her notebook, the maps she drew, the characters she created. Could those have been echoes from this other place? "Why me?" Ellie asked. "Why not someone older? A wizard or something?" "Because the kingdom of soft dreams can only be seen by those who still believe in the impossible," Thistle said gently. "And adults forget." Ellie looked up at the glowing line of trees. "What do I have to do?" "Come with me," Thistle said. "The journey won't be easy, but I will guide you." Ellie hesitated, looked back at her house, at the dim light glowing in her parents' room. She turned toward the forest. "I'm coming." Thistle flapped his wings, rising into the air. Ellie followed on foot. The wind picked up, brushing the grass like fingers through hair. As she stepped into the first line of trees, she felt the air change. Cooler, sweeter, like honey and mint and stars. The forest path curved into impossible shapes. The deeper she went, the more the moonlight pulsed like a heartbeat. Owls hooted from high branches, and soft melodies drifted from invisible flutes. Then the trees opened into a glade, and what Ellie saw took her breath away. A river of silver ran through the clearing, sparkling with drifting lights like sleeping fireflies. Trees taller than skyscrapers swayed, their bark covered in glowing moss. And in the middle of it all, a wooden door floated in midair. No frame, no wall, just a door. Thistle landed beside it. "This is the gate," he said. "When you pass through, you'll wake up inside the kingdom of soft dreams. But beware, the longer you stay, the more real it becomes. And some never wish to return." Ellie stared at the door. "What if I get lost?" "I'll be with you. Always." Taking a deep breath, she reached for the doorknob. The moment her fingers touched the wood, everything shimmered. The world bent, stretched, and folded like a page being turned. And then she was standing on a bridge made of clouds. Below her, a golden ocean shimmered. Above her, stars blinked like living things. Towers of glass and silk twisted upward from islands that floated midair. Gentle creatures drifted by. Lions with butterfly wings, whales with lanterns on their backs, birds that sang in colors instead of sound. This was the kingdom of soft dreams. Ellie felt her knees go weak. "Is this all real?" she whispered. "As real as you are," Thistle replied. But not all was well. Across the horizon, a dark cloud crept slowly, blotting out stars in its path. Shapes twisted within it. Too far to see clearly, but too close to ignore. "That's Hollowmire," Thistle said, "and it knows you're here." To be continued. The moment Ellie stepped onto Cloud Bridge, she felt as though she were walking inside a dream, and not just any dream, but one written in someone else's handwriting. The clouds beneath her feet were warm and soft, like walking on memory foam that hummed gently with every step. The air smelled of cinnamon and starlight, and her breath looked like swirls of glitter. Thistle flew beside her, his wings silent. "This way," he said. "We have to reach the mirror tree before night falls in this world." That's when Hollowmire moves fastest. Ellie nodded, still soaking in the view. Floating islands drifted in slow circles above golden lakes. Skyfish leapt through clouds. Time didn't feel real here. 1 second stretched like a yawn, while others passed in a blink. As they walked, she noticed something strange. "Thistle, do the stars here move?" "Yes," Thistle said. "They follow dreamers. Wherever a dreamer walks, the stars follow above, guiding their way. But when stars stop moving, that's when danger begins." Ellie looked up. Above her, the stars gently shifted like dancers in a slow waltz. "Do other people live here?" she asked. "Oh, yes," Thistle said, "but not people like you. The kingdom of soft dreams is home to the Somni, beings born from old dreams, forgotten stories, and half-remembered lullabies. Some are friendly, others not so much. And Hollowmire, he was born when a great dreamer gave up on dreaming. His sadness turned to shadow, and his imagination into hunger. He began devouring light, story, and hope. They crossed the bridge and stepped onto a floating path made of luminous stones. Beneath them, the world twisted and turned in shapes that shouldn't be possible. Up became sideways, forward felt like backward, and each footstep echoed in more than one direction. Thistle pointed ahead. "That's the night path. We must walk it before it forgets where it leads." They moved quickly, though Ellie had to pause often just to absorb everything. A school of glowing birds flew overhead, and with each flap of their wings, they whispered tiny pieces of stories. One about a lonely prince who talked to waterfalls, another about a lost teacup that turned into a planet. "I've never seen anything like this," Ellie whispered. "No one has. Every dreamscape is different. The kingdom builds itself based on the soul of the traveler." Ellie looked down at her own hands. Did that mean all of this? Cloud bridges, floating books, butterfly lines, was somehow shaped by her imagination? As they climbed a hill of crushed moon petals, Ellie saw it. The mirror tree. It stood alone in the center of a wide valley. Its bark was made of polished silver. Its branches were clear like glass. And instead of leaves, it had thousands of mirrors. Each mirror shimmered softly, each one showing a different version of the same forest. Some bright and green, others dark and twisted. "That's beautiful," Ellie breathed. Thistle's voice grew serious. "It is also dangerous. The mirror tree holds the memories of every visitor who has ever entered the dream world. If you look into the wrong mirror too long, you could be pulled into a dream that isn't yours." Ellie approached slowly. Her reflection appeared in the nearest mirror. except it wasn't her current self. It was Ellie as a baby, cradled in her mother's arms. She reached toward the glass. "Don't," Thistle warned. "Touching that mirror would pull you into that memory, and you might not be able to return." Ellie backed away, heart pounding. "Why did we come here then?" she asked. "The mirror tree will show us where Hollowmire has gone," Thistle replied. "It sees all things in dreams, even the ones we try to forget." He fluttered up to a branch near the center of the tree. One mirror among thousands was clouded with shadow. As he touched it with his wing, it shimmered, then cleared. Ellie peered inside. The mirror showed a cliff of black stone hanging above a pit of swirling fog. Towering shadows moved within the mist. Hollowmire stood at the edge, his form half solid, half smoke. He had no face, only a jagged mouth and two glowing cracks where eyes should be. He was whispering to something. A small creature stood beside him, a girl, pale, hair tangled like vines. She wore a paper crown and clutched a stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were hollow, as if all color had been stolen. "Who is that?" Ellie asked, chilled to the bone. "Her name was Lacey," Thistle said quietly. "She was the last dreamer to enter this realm before you. Hollowmire trapped her, convinced her that nightmares are safer than hopes. She's now half-shadow. If we don't save her soon, she'll fade completely." Ellie swallowed. "Can we help her?" "Yes, but only if we reach the cliff of waking before Hollowmire opens a rift." Ellie didn't know what a rift was, but it didn't sound good. Suddenly, the mirror shuddered. Hollowmire turned and looked directly at them. The mirror cracked. A hiss echoed through the valley. "Run!" Thistle shouted. From the edge of the hill, black vines shot from the ground like whips. They coiled toward the mirror tree, wrapping around branches and shattering mirrors with sharp cracks. Ellie ran, heart pounding, as the vines chased them. One brushed her ankle. Immediately, she saw flashes of terrible dreams, drowning in shadows, being forgotten, screaming in a room full of silence. Thistle flew ahead, guiding her back to the night path. "Keep running. Don't stop." The vines howled behind them like angry wind. The night path shimmered. Stones began vanishing one by one. "Jump!" Thistle cried. Ellie leaped onto the last glowing stone. It flung her forward, into a patch of clouds that caught her like a trampoline. She landed in a heap beside a silver stream. Her ankle throbbed, but the dream flashes had stopped. She was shaking. Thistle landed beside her. "You were touched by Hollowmire's vines. Are you all right?" "I saw things," Ellie whispered. "Awful things." Thistle nodded solemnly. "Hollowmire doesn't hurt your body. He attacks your heart, your faith, your belief in yourself." Ellie wiped her eyes. "I want to go home." "I know," said Thistle, "but Lacey is still lost. And if Hollowmire opens a rift, he'll send his darkness into the waking world. Your world." Ellie looked at the stars above, which had stopped moving. She took a deep breath. "I'll keep going." Thistle smiled. "Good. Then we must head east. The only being who knows how to seal the rift is the Dreamsmith." "Who's that?" "He forges the rules of this realm. He lives inside a clock made of thunder, hidden in the sky caverns." "Sounds complicated." Thistle chuckled. "Most truths are." They began walking again, leaving the shattered tree behind. Ellie couldn't stop thinking about Lacey, the pale girl with the paper crown. What had happened to her? Was she alone in that cliff fortress? Did she still dream? As they crossed a field of glass butterflies, the stars finally began to move again, a sign that hope still flickered. But behind them, deep in the crack of the broken mirror, Hollowmire watched, and he whispered, "Another dreamer. Let her in. Let her fall." To be continued. The path ahead was unlike anything Ellie had seen so far. The ground was no longer stone or cloud. It was music, literal music. Each step echoed with a different note, creating a melody as she and Thistle journeyed toward the sky caverns. Around them stretched a valley made entirely of song, hills shaped like harps, trees strung with golden chords that hummed with wind, and rivers that sparkled with rhythm instead of water. Every footstep added a beat. Even Thistle's wings created faint violin notes when he flapped. "The kingdom sings when it remembers its purpose," Thistle said. It sings when a dreamer walks toward truth. Ellie smiled for the first time in a while, letting herself breathe in the beauty. She still felt the memory of Hollowmire's vines on her ankle, but the nightmare whispers had faded. For now. How far is the sky cavern? She asked. Not far now, Thistle replied. But the way forward is not always forward. They walked past a grove of crescent trees, each tree bent in the shape of a crescent moon. Beneath one, Ellie saw a group of creatures resting, tiny, round beings with faces drawn like sketches, soft and sleepy. They waved to her lazily, then faded into the shadows. Those are dreamlings, Thistle explained. They are pieces of dreams people never finish. They wait to be remembered. Ellie looked back at them with wonder. I think I've seen something like them in my drawings. You probably have. Most artists have touched the edge of this world. As they crossed a rope bridge made of braided lullabies, a storm began to brew. But it wasn't a normal storm. It didn't come from the sky. It came from above it. Thunder cracked upside down. The clouds peeled back to reveal a spiraling vortex, a tower hanging in the sky, made of spinning gears, glowing lightning and ticking clocks. It spun slowly, suspended in the middle of a storm that never touched the ground. There, Thistle said, that's where the Dreamsmith lives. Ellie gawked. How do we get up there? Thistle smiled. With belief. He flapped his wings and soared into the air, circling her once. You must believe that you're light enough to rise. Ellie laughed nervously. That's not how gravity works. Gravity works differently here. In the dream world, you must mean what you feel. Ellie closed her eyes. She remembered all the times she had dreamed of flying. She remembered the stories she had written, of heroes with wings and bridges made of wind. She took a deep breath. I believe. The moment the words left her lips, her feet lifted from the ground. Not fast, just a gentle float, like being pulled up by invisible balloons. Ellie squealed in disbelief. I'm flying. Now focus, or you'll end up in a rain cloud. Thistle laughed. Together they rose toward the tower. As they neared, the storm grew louder, but it wasn't angry. It sounded like a ticking heart or a grandfather clock churning forward. The clock of thunder loomed overhead, each gear larger than a house. Ellie landed on a balcony made of brass, lightning pulsing in its railings. Inside, the chamber was round and enormous. Gears spun in slow motion. Books floated in spirals. Lightning crawled across the ceiling like dancing ink. In the center stood the Dreamsmith. He wasn't human. He was something more. Tall as a tree, dressed in robes made of stars and timepieces. His face was made of shifting symbols, a mix of faces, ideas, and memories. When he spoke, his voice echoed like overlapping whispers from 1,000 different dreams. Welcome, Ellie Carter. She gulped. You know my name? I know every dreamer who has ever crossed the border. He looked at Thistle. It has been long since the veil was last this thin. Thistle bowed. Hollowmire grows stronger. He has taken another dreamer. We seek your guidance. The Dreamsmith moved toward Ellie. She stood her ground, trembling only slightly. You've been touched by darkness, he said, his voice both kind and immense. You saw your own fears and kept walking. That is rare. Most turn back. Ellie swallowed. I couldn't leave that girl behind. Lacey. The Dreamsmith's hands moved. A gear lifted from the floor and hovered between them. Inside it swirled a storm. Visions of Lacey's shadowed face. Hollowmire whispering beside her. The rift began to open above the black cliffs. You must go to the Labyrinth of Forgotten Echoes, he said. Only there will you find the key to seal the rift. A labyrinth? Ellie asked. Like a maze? Worse, said Thistle. It's a maze of memory and voice. You will hear echoes of every fear you've ever had, and not all of them will be your own. The Dreamsmith continued. Inside the labyrinth lies the last true name of Hollowmire. Names have power. With his true name, you can bind him. But how will I know which name is real? Ellie asked. You will feel it. The name that burns, not in fear, but in truth. He held out his hand. In his palm appeared a single glowing pendant, shaped like an hourglass, filled with floating stardust. This will light your path, he said. But beware. If the hourglass turns black, you have strayed too far from yourself. Ellie took it. The moment she touched it, warmth flowed through her fingers, up her arm, and into her chest. A pulse of calm. I'll do it, she said. The dreamsmith bowed. Then go quickly. Hollowmire grows hungrier. Before she could ask another question, the floor beneath her vanished, like falling through a page in a book, and she tumbled through swirling colors and whispered memories until her feet hit solid ground. She was standing before a wall of mist, the Labyrinth of Forgotten Echoes. Gray stone arches stretched high into the sky. Vines of shadow curled along the walls. Faint voices echoed in the distance, whispers of arguments, regrets, dreams that had soured, things lost. Thistle appeared beside her. Are you ready? Ellie gripped the pendant. Not even close. But let's do this anyway. They stepped inside. Immediately, the voices rose. Why do you think you matter? You'll never finish anything you start. No one remembers the stories you write. Ellie flinched. Are those my thoughts? Not all, Thistle said. Some are from others who passed through here. The labyrinth holds on to echoes. They walked through corridors that shifted and looped, passing doors that led to memories Ellie didn't remember having. One room showed her first time drawing as a child. Another showed her crying when she lost her best friend in second grade. Another showed her watching her parents argue through a keyhole. But none of them were traps. Until she heard laughter. A voice echoed, Ellie, you're not real here, just like your stories. Hollowmire sees that. The hallway darkened. The hourglass flickered. A door appeared, a tall, crooked one made of shadow. Don't open it, Thistle warned. That's his voice, not yours. But the door opened on its own. Inside stood Lacey. Not the pale, shadowed girl. This time, she looked alive. Hair neat, eyes bright. She held out her hand. Ellie, you found me. Ellie stepped closer. Thistle landed on her shoulder. That's not her. But she looks... The hourglass pulse red. The room shimmered. Lacey's skin cracked like porcelain and black fog oozed out. Hollowmire stepped forward from behind her, his form leaking out like oil. You don't belong here, he hissed. You never did. Ellie held the pendant high. Your name? I know you have one, and I'll find it. Hollowmire growled. The shadows exploded toward her. She turned and ran, Thistle close behind. The corridors shifted, twisting faster, voices screaming now. The hourglass flickered wildly. At the end of the hall, a glowing chamber appeared. Inside was a mirror, but this one didn't show reflections. It showed names. Thousands of them, floating, drifting. One by one, they burned away, until one remained. Ushkur! The moment she spoke it aloud, the shadows shrieked. The walls of the labyrinth shattered outward like glass. And Ellie fell once more, into light, into fire, into memory, into beginning of the end. To be continued. Ellie hit the ground hard, but the impact didn't hurt. Instead, it felt like landing in a wave of wind and color. Ribbons of silver and violet spun around her, as if the dream world itself had cushioned her fall. The hourglass pendant pulsed against her chest, glowing with a steady golden heartbeat. Ushkur, she whispered. The name still buzzed on her tongue like electricity. Behind her, Thistle fluttered down and landed beside her shoulder, looking both relieved and worried. His feathers were slightly ruffled, and his normally calm eyes now looked clouded with tension. You found it, he said. His true name. Ellie nodded slowly. That's Hollowmire's real name. Thistle tilted his head. No, that was his name before he became Hollowmire, before he let fear twist him. They stood at the edge of a new land now. The floating gardens and glowing forests were gone. In their place stretched a shadowed plateau, covered in ash-like fog and strange stone ruins. The skies above were darker here, not black, but the color of dim memory, like a dream slowly fading. This place feels wrong, Ellie whispered. It's where Hollowmire Ushkur has opened the rift, Thistle said, and where Lacey is still trapped. The air was thick, The ground pulsed beneath Ellie's feet, like the slow heartbeat of something ancient. From far ahead came the sound of cracks, ripping, stretching, like fabric being torn in half. Thistle pointed toward the horizon, and Ellie saw it. The rift, it floated just above a jagged cliff, like a wound in the air. A massive tear, splitting sky from sky, spilling black wind and flickering shadows that moved like half-formed nightmares. From its center poured a steady stream of darkness, coiling like smoke, whispering as it slithered outward. And standing before it was Ushkur, or what was left of him. He no longer resembled the shadowy figure from the mirrors. Now he stood taller, more solid, a cloak of mist swirling around him. His hands were long, clawed, dripping black ink that evaporated before it hit the ground. His eyes were white voids, empty of soul but full of knowing. Beside him stood Lacey. Her paper crown was cracked. Her eyes were blank. She didn't move. Ellie stepped forward instinctively, but Thistle spread his wings wide. Wait! Ellie turned. We can't. He's hurting her. She's losing herself. I know, Thistle said, voice low, but if you charge him without the truth, he will consume you too. Ellie gritted her teeth. Then tell me the truth. Thistle looked at her, really looked, as if weighing something very old and very heavy. Ushkur wasn't always a monster. He was a dreamer, just like you. What? He came here long ago, before I even served as guardian. He believed so deeply in the beauty of dreams that he tried to reshape the kingdom. But his dream was too big, too lonely. When others didn't see what he saw, when they mocked him, his dream turned to doubt, and doubt turned to anger. Ellie remembered her own quiet moments. The kids at school calling her weird. Her parents saying she spent too much time alone, too deep in her little stories. Ushkur gave up hope, Thistle said, and the dream kingdom gave up on him. Ellie looked down at the pendant. It's not enough to say his name, is it? She said. No, you must speak it while he still remembers it. They stepped forward together, moving across the ruined ground. As they got closer, the whispers grew louder, voices from a rift. Ellie couldn't understand the words, but the feelings poured into her. Rejection, fear, silence, shame. She held tight to her pendant. Then Ushkur turned. His face was unreadable, void and shadow and longing all at once. You followed me, he said. His voice was not cruel. It was tired. I came for her, Ellie said, pointing to Lacey. And I came for you. Ushkur tilted his head. You don't understand. I've seen your kind. Hopeful, bright. You fall faster than anyone. And when you fall forever. No, Ellie said firmly. We fall, but we get back up. Ushkur's mouth twisted, not into a smile, but something between sorrow and disbelief. Ellie stepped closer. Your name is Ushkur. I saw it, in the Labyrinth of Echoes. You weren't always this shadow. Ushkur's cloak rippled violently, and the rift flared behind him. Don't say that name, he hissed. It's your name. I don't want it anymore. Ellie walked past Thistle. The air grew colder with every step, like walking into a forgotten winter. Lacey stood only a few feet away now, her eyes empty, lips pressed together. Lacey, Ellie said gently, can you hear me? No response. Ellie looked at Ushkur again. You took her to make yourself feel whole, but she's not yours. I didn't take her, Ushkur said. She came to me. She gave up, just like I did. She was already halfway here. I just opened the door wider. Ellie closed her eyes. The pendant pulsed once. Then she held it out and stepped into the light. Your name is Ushkur, she said clearly, firmly, and you're not gone. You're not lost. You're just scared. Ushkur roared. Shadows exploded outward from him. But the pendant's light held firm, pushing the darkness back in waves. You still feel, don't you? Ellie shouted. That's why the rift isn't finished. Because even now you still remember. Ushkur staggered, as if her words struck something deep. You were a dreamer, like me, like Lacey. I don't dream anymore, he screamed. There's nothing left. Ellie stepped right up to him now. The pendant glowed with blinding golden light. Then why are you still here? She whispered. The rift behind Ishkur stopped moving. The shadows froze. Time itself seemed to pause. And then, for the first time, Ishkur lowered his head. The mist around him faltered, and Lacey blinked. She gasped, stumbling back. Her paper crown fell to ground. Ellie caught her before she collapsed. I heard you, Lacey whispered. Through the echoes. You were real. I still am, Ellie said, smiling through tears. Ishkur stepped back, hands trembling. His form began to flicker, between shadow and light, between fear and memory. You spoke my name, he said. I didn't think anyone ever would. And then, for a moment, Ishkur was just a boy, a scared, wide-eyed boy with ink-stained fingers and 1,000 unwritten stories in his heart. Ellie held out her hand. You can stop now, she said softly. Come back. But Ishkur shook his head. I've done too much. I opened the rift. I can't stay here. Thistle landed beside them. There's still a way. Ishkur looked up. The rift was born from you. It can end with you, Thistle said. Ishkur looked at his hands. Then at Ellie. Then at the sky, which had begun to lighten. He stepped toward the rift. And without another word, he raised his hands. He whispered something Ellie couldn't hear. And the rift closed. With a gentle sigh, the tear in the sky folded inward and disappeared. The wind stopped. The whispers faded. Ishkur turned back to Ellie and Lacey. And then he smiled, a soft, sad smile. Then he vanished, like the final breath of a dream remembered just before waking. The cliffs turned to mist. The shadows faded. The world brightened. And Ellie collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Thistle stood quietly. He returned to the dream. Lacey looked at Ellie. You saved me. No, Ellie said softly. You remembered yourself. Together, they watched as the stars above began to shift again. The kingdom of soft dreams was healing, but it wasn't over yet. To be continued. The world around Ellie had shifted once again. But this time, it wasn't collapsing or fading. It was blooming, where the rift once hovered. There now stood a glade of golden light, soft grass beneath their feet, and flower-like stars blinking in the air. The ground no longer pulsed with fear, but hummed gently with life returning. It felt like breathing after holding your lungs too long underwater. Lacey sat quietly beside Ellie on the edge of a small stream that hadn't been there moments before. She dipped her fingers into it. The water sang. I remember now, Lacey whispered. My dreams. My real ones. Ellie looked at her. Her eyes were no longer hollow. They sparkled, though dimly, like a nightlight in a long hallway. What did you see while you were with Ishkur? Ellie asked. Lacey was quiet a moment. Mostly, the worst parts of myself. The things I thought nobody else saw. But he didn't scare me at first. He just listened. That's how it starts, Thistle said, perching on a glowing stone. The shadows offer comfort before they take control. They tell you that you're safe if you stay small, that you're better off forgetting who you are. But you remembered, Ellie said. You made it back. Lacey looked at Ellie, then down at her own hands. Because I heard your voice. It felt like a string pulling me out of a really deep well. Ellie smiled faintly. You helped me too, you know. I think, if I hadn't seen you, I wouldn't have gone this far. Thistle ruffled his feathers. You both have done more than most dreamers ever manage. But the journey isn't over. Ellie blinked. What do you mean? We closed the rift. Ishkur is gone. Thistle nodded. Yes, but that was just one tear in the veil. The kingdom of soft dreams is healing, but remains unstable. Ishkur's actions left echoes. Remnants. If they're not calmed, the kingdom may never fully recover. Ellie felt the weight of that. So what now? You must take Lacey to the Lake of Recollection, Thistle said. It's the only place where a dreamer can fully return to the waking world without losing themselves. If she leaves without it, part of her will always stay lost. Ellie stood and helped Lacey to her feet. Then that's where we're going. Thistle flew ahead, guiding the way. The journey took them through dreamlands Ellie hadn't yet seen. Fields of floating feathers that whispered lullabies, Mountains made of folded paper and laughter, and valleys where forgotten toys danced gently in the wind. Each place seemed to sigh in relief as they passed, like the kingdom itself knew that something terrible had been stopped. Along the way, Lacey asked questions about Thistle, about Ellie's world, about what ice cream tasted like now. "I remember birthday cake," she said, "but it's blurry, like it belonged to someone else." "It'll come back," Ellie promised. Eventually, they reached the lake. It was vast and still, a mirror of soft pink water stretching out forever. The sky above it reflected perfectly, as if the world had been flipped upside down. In the center of the lake stood a single platform, a round circle of silver stone. "That's where she must stand," Thistle explained. "When she steps into the lake, her reflection will begin to speak. If she accepts it, if she forgives the parts of herself that were lost, the kingdom will return her." Lacey stepped forward. "I'm scared." "I know," Ellie said, "but you're stronger than you think." With slow, cautious steps, Lacey walked into the water. It rippled gently, glowing with soft blues and pinks. When she reached the center stone, the lake grew silent, and then her reflection began to move, but it didn't mimic her. It acted independently, speaking, crying, laughing, telling truths Lacey hadn't admitted in a long time. "I felt invisible," it said. "I wanted to be seen, but I also wanted to hide. I didn't think I mattered." Lacey stood still, tears in her eyes. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She listened. Then she stepped forward and embraced the reflection. The lake shimmered. The world pulsed. And a wave of light swept outward from the center, as if the lake itself exhaled. Lacey collapsed gently into the water and vanished. Ellie gasped. "Where did she go?" "She's gone back," Thistle said calmly. "To your world. Her memory of this place will fade slowly, but not completely. Enough will remain for her to begin again." Ellie looked down at the water. Her own reflection looked back. "Do I need to step in too?" she asked. Thistle shook his head. "Not yet. Your path isn't finished. There's one last place you must go." Ellie frowned. "Where?" "The Dreamer's Archive." A sudden hush fell across the lake, as if even the water was listening. "What's that?" Ellie asked. Thistle's voice lowered. "It's where every dream ever created by a dreamer is stored. The archive records everything, your drawings, your poems, your secret wishes. And in that place lies the final decision." "Decision?" "Yes," Thistle said. "When you go there, you'll be asked, stay or return." Ellie blinked. "Wait, you're saying I can stay here?" "The kingdom does not forget those who restore it," Thistle said. "You've proven yourself. You could live here forever. You would remember everything. You'd create your own realm. You'd be a guardian like me." Ellie's heart fluttered. Stay in the kingdom of soft dreams? Never go back to homework or arguments or crowded lunchrooms? Never be called weird again? "But what happens if I leave?" she asked. "You'll return to your world. Your memories of this place will fade, just like Lacey's. The light will stay inside you, but the magic will become softer, harder to touch. You'll wake up, and it'll feel like a dream." She was quiet. "Then take me to the archive." Thistle nodded. They soared over the lake, through silver fog, until they reached a tall crystal tower, so high it disappeared into the stars. Inside, millions of glowing orbs floated in stillness. Each one pulsed with quiet music. "What are they?" Ellie whispered. "Dreams. Yours." A sphere floated toward her. Inside, she saw herself as a child, drawing a castle on the back of a math test. Another showed her sitting at the library, reading fantasy novels no one else liked. Another, her in the dark, whispering stories to herself so she wouldn't cry. Ellie's chest ached. I forgot how much I dreamed." "All children do," Thistle said softly. At the center of the tower stood a gate. "Beyond that," Thistle said, "lies your choice." Ellie stood in silence. "I could stay?" she asked again. "Yes, but I'd never see my family again. My friends. My life." "No," Thistle said. "Dreamers who stay become part of the kingdom. They belong here, but they stop belonging there. Ellie looked at the glowing orbs once more. They were beautiful, pure, and hers. But then she remembered Lacey, the way her voice had cracked, the way her eyes had brightened when she began to remember. She remembered the way she felt when Thistle first found her. "I know what I have to do," she said, and she stepped through the gate. Ellie wasn't sure what she expected when she stepped through the gate. Maybe it would be sudden, like falling, or soft, like floating. Instead, it felt like both. Colors wrapped around her like a blanket, shifting from gold to blue to soft pearl. She heard every sound she'd ever loved. The rustle of paper, the sigh of wind through pine trees, her mother's quiet hum in the kitchen. She was going home. But something inside her resisted. Not fear, not sorrow, but gravity. The kind of pull you feel when a story ends, and you don't want to turn the last page. She whispered one last thing before the world faded. "Thank you." And then she woke up. The sheets were tangled around her legs. Morning light spilled through the window in soft stripes. The smell of cinnamon waffles floated from downstairs. Ellie sat up slowly. Her heart pounded in her chest like she'd run a mile. She glanced around the room. Same posters, same string lights, same pile of books on her desk. A dream. It had all been a dream. Except her shoes were still damp with dewdrops. "Ellie," her mom called from downstairs. "Breakfast." She stared at the floor for a moment, then stood. Downstairs, her little brother was already halfway through his syrup-soaked waffles. He grinned at her with sticky teeth. "You were out cold," he said. "Mom said you slept for like 11 hours. "Yeah," Ellie said softly. It was the long dream. Later that day at school, she spotted Lacey near the lockers. She hadn't seen her since before the camping trip. Lacey looked different. Still quiet, still shy, but her eyes didn't seem as distant. They passed each other in the hallway, and for a second their eyes met. Lacey smiled, just a tiny one. Ellie smiled back. No words were exchanged. None were needed. In the weeks that followed, Ellie began to notice changes. Tiny ones, like how her dreams were clearer, how she started writing again, long pages of fantasy worlds and magical creatures, how she felt a little less afraid of being herself. Once, while waiting for the bus, a white feather drifted down from nowhere and landed on her knee. She didn't question it. She just whispered, "Hi, Thistle." On her birthday, she found a notebook on her pillow. It wasn't from her mom or dad. She flipped it open and saw the first page. For the dreamer who returned. T. Ellie kept it under her bed, writing in it every night. The stories flowed without effort. The kingdom of soft dreams lived on through her words, through her characters, her doodles, her laughter in the dark. One evening, after finishing a long chapter, she leaned back and stared at the ceiling. She remembered the archive, the glowing orbs, the decision she had chosen to return. But some part of her hadn't really left, because the truth was, dreamers never fully leave the kingdom, not when they remember how to imagine. And as Ellie closed her eyes at night, a soft wind rustled the curtains. The scent of moonlight and pine filled her room. Far away, beyond the edges of waking, the moonlight forest stirred, and a talking owl, perched high in a dreamlit tree, blinked once and whispered, "She remembers."